Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're in the world. Welcome to A Celtic World, the Tactical Review. My name is Anthony and I'm joined, as always, with Paul Massey at this earlier broadcast time, trying to navigate the changing of the clocks as we analyse Hearts 3, Celtic 1. Before we get into that, Paul, how are you? How are you doing? I saw you last night, so I kind of know how you're doing, but why don't you tell listeners how you're doing and what you got up to on the weekend?
Yeah, well, it was a pretty good weekend until the match started, right? Yeah, decent weekend. Caught up with some mates Saturday, a couple of drinks. Weather was pretty good for us here. We obviously caught up with a couple of the boys for a bit of dinner and a couple of beers before the match, which was good crack. And I think all was going okay until about half time. And it went rapidly downhill from there. But yeah, we'll get into that in a minute.
Yes, like I said, busy weekends. Wife was off to work overseas for the week, so had to get everything done on the Saturday and gardening on Sunday, but Sunday afternoon myself, and obviously catching up with you and the boys. And like I said, I thought, well, it's the top of the table clash. We should sort of make an effort to get to the local Perth Celtic Supporters Club and watch the match and take in a bit of atmosphere. And there was atmosphere to start with, and then unfortunately let down by what was on the pitch. But I guess on the back of a reasonable performance in Europe, we were probably buoyed with a little bit of confidence that maybe we were going to put a performance in the league. But that is now 2 straight defeats to Dundee and now to Hearts. But like I say, we'll get into the details. I was bringing in some comments. Strange Love the Doctor. Hi, playing chess and listening to us. Well, that's a good way to de-stress. Fair play. Are you playing with someone or are you just playing against yourself? Let us know in the comments. And what's Henrik Larsson? Keen to hear your take on the slow motion car crash unfolding before our eyes. Yeah, we've got a few opinions, so we'll be happy to share those over the next hour. Let's just consider a little bit of a joint therapy session. Help his detox from that last night. Monty saying, morning, evening, gentlemen. Yep, evening to you, sir, where we are in the world. Hail, hail, lads. Hail, hail to you, David. Sing out in the comments section. If you have anything that you want to add to the discussion, please keep it civilized, because I know emotions are running a bit on the high side at the moment, but, let's keep it civil amongst ourselves. Paul, you were obviously a little bit ambivalent about going out to watch the game last night, and also on the back of our 2-1 victory against Stromgarts, that sort of, again, that little bit of optimism sort of creeped in. I guess the real blemish to that victory during the week at Celtic Park was the amount of injuries that we racked up. And that's probably a good place to start, because that kind of snowballed into our trip to Tynecastle, because unfortunately injuries to Alistair Johnston, who, you have to ask, was maybe brought back too soon. And injuries to Kelechi Iheanacho as well, who's really been our only recognised striker, particularly with Daizen Maeda also on the sidelines with a hamstring injury, yes. So we've got that going on. And then obviously we think, all right, lost 2 players, and then right on the last kick of the ball, Carter Vickers does his Achilles tendon, and apparently he's not out for the next 3 to 5 months. So that game has cost us dearly. I mean, that's 3 starting players who, all right, AJ's not really been there for all season, but Carter Vickers has been a stalwart at the back, and Iheanacho is basically your recognised striker, with the greatest respects to John Kenny. So how are you feeling with this lineup? Because obviously I kind of felt that Rodgers didn't really have many choices. I guess the real choices there were the choice of the centre-back pairing, choices of fullback, because there was obviously options there. Obviously, there's still the option of Bernardo in the midfield and Luke McCowan, but he opted with the same midfield 3 that featured against our Austrian opponents, and then retained the same sort of central forward three, obviously with Kenny finishing the game on Thursday night. Paul, take it away.
Yeah, so I think you got in touch with me on maybe Tuesday post the Dundee game saying, wife's going to be away. Will you fancy the club? And ambivalence, putting it kindly. I had absolutely really no interest in going out on a Sunday night at 8 p.m. to watch the match based on how bad we were against Dundee. But I was
being polite.
I was starting to come around a little bit and think, oh well, at least we could catch up with the boys and have a beer. And then obviously we put in what was an okay showing. I think we all hoped it would be another opportunity to kick on, and we've had a few of these false dawns this season already. And it was a good result, all things considered, particularly having to come back from a goal down. And yeah, I thought, well, yeah, even with the injuries, let's hope we can build on that momentum. And to be honest, whether I would argue this is the team I would have played, this is the team I think we sat in the pub before the match and said before the team lines came out, or as the team lines came out, and said this is the team we expected to get picked, all things considered. So yeah, no surprises for me. I think this is the team that played the majority of that match, minus Murray for CCV. Like if you once Donovan comes on for the injury of AJ, and once Kenny comes on for the injury, and these are both very early injuries to Iheanacho, then this is the team that played the majority of the minutes, and for the most part they grew into the game and they got it done in the end. Not without various faults. Nygren should have had a hat trick. Kenny could have potentially had a hat trick. And other players were up and down. So really, if you're going to go, well, that's a team that did the job against Sturm Graz. If everyone pulls up okay, and that's the other factor. And I think we were all a little bit surprised to see Kieran Tierney complete, essentially, that's 390 minutes in a row in the space of a week, which he hasn't done, I would imagine, for years, probably. It's certainly the first time he started 3 games in a row since he came back. But he probably had his best game in a Celtic shirt in the second spell against Sturm Graz. So if he was capable and fit, then you would say he would be picked. But the big question was, Murray or Trusty. There's an argument for both. Obviously, Trusty carries the experience, £6 million centre back, but player would have had to play on the wrong side, or Dane Murray, who has not played a lot of football, but is very highly regarded at the club and is natural right-sided. And there's been a lot of people, myself included, being keen to see him get a bit more game time, and potentially is he a successor coming through. Now, I've seen a lot of commentary today saying, "Oh, just pick the experienced player. Trusty should have started." It's an absolute, disaster to pick Murray. It never should have happened. But the other factor in here that none of us know, the only people that know this is inside the dressing room, is quite how close to being fully fit Austin Trusty is. Now, the manager went with the commentary that he wanted to go with a naturally right-sided player. That might be the case, or he might be protecting the fact that Austin Trusty maybe isn't quite there. And yeah, he was maybe capable of 20 minutes, half an hour if needed. If that is the case, then there's another argument for saying where's Simpson Puzzi and all of this. Still nowhere to be seen. And then you'd be happy for people to point out that guys like Lagerbielke and Nawrocki are no longer at the club. So it's easy to be an expert in hindsight. I think a good chunk of the fan base would have been quite happy to see Murray in the team. Obviously, he had a bit of a nightmare. But, and I won't do this right now because I've talked about it already, I will make a bit of a case for him later that whilst he made key errors, he's by no means should be taking the full scapegoating of this, because as we talk about quite regularly on this show, every time you lose a goal, there's multiple people involved, and that is still the case in the 3 goals that were lost yesterday, and we'll get to those as we work through.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of, obviously Brendan Rodgers has come under criticism for, yesterday's performance. And, there's obviously a bit of a narrative online where you've got people who are blaming the board. He's not been given the tools to put a decent team on the park, which I think is definitely a fair argument. And then there's other people who are saying, sack Rodgers now, bring someone else in, fresh ideas. And then, obviously part of that is these are the same people who are probably saying sack the board, but how can you trust them to make that snap change? Because, knowing how things tend to go would be like with a temporary manager, probably with your man, John Kennedy, running the team for a month or two, waiting for them to try and figure out who to replace Brendan Rodgers with. So you've got this sort of sliding narrative happening.
Well, and knowing where they'd be, you're not going to end up with Ange Postecoglou, as many of us would love to see, or somebody. You
end up with Sean Maloney.
You get Sean Maloney, you get Neil Lennon back, you get Scott Brown.
He was doing his best to sprint for the job last night on Sky. But anyway, we might touch on that later.
And you get Charlie Mulgrew as an assistant or something. That's what you'll end up with if this board are allowed to change the manager mid-season. So it is an absolute shambles at the minute, top to bottom. But
where I was going with this, and I'm sorry, going to be a tangent, but where I was going with this, the bit of criticism that I will level at Brendan Rodgers is he's dug himself a bit of a hole here, because he's now having to rely on players who have had 0 minutes this season, or next to 0 minutes. He's brought in Dane Murray out of the cold, not had a look in, not had any game time. It's his second league start. We had to bring in Shin Yamada to the bench, and you knew he was going to have to come on at some point. And then the unfair situation where you're coming on to try and change the game and get a goal back or get 2 goals back, and the lad's not had any game time. And again, like, everyone in the support's expecting miracles. It's like the guy's not kicked the ball. Like, it's unfair, really, to expect him. I know, right, they train and they do whatever, but there's no substitute for game time. And then you sort of have to ask yourself, Paulo Bernardo, where is he? Like, again, doesn't get on. And you're sort of scratching your head going, like, where are these players? Like, you've got, Brendan Rodgers basically wrote some of these players off at the start of the season, and now he's having to rely on them. And it's like, he's created a problem for himself in a way, because there's not been any rotation in certain positions. Like, he's relied on Stales and CCV every single game. And it's like, you've got to pick and choose and try and rotate those players through, because an Achilles tendon may have been just overload from too much football. But he just kept going at the well and picking the same players, picking Atati, picking McGregor, and in fairness, McGregor probably had his best game in a Celtic shot this season, because he really tried his best to drag the team along. But for me, that's substitutions and whatnot. Yeah, there's a couple of things we'll talk about as the game goes on that I'm scratching my head with as well with Rodgers. But for me, part of his lack of ability to rotate the squad, except for 1 or 2 changes that he makes, is now coming back to hurt him with all the injuries that we've got. But like I said, we'll get into the game, and then we can sort of bleed the points in as we go. So
it's an absolute spot on point, though, just before we go any further, because he didn't even use all 5 subs yesterday. He only used 4. So you'd think in a game like this, where you're looking for something to change, you would try and utilize the whole bench, and he didn't. So I think it's a valid point.
Okay, Paul, this was an early chance for Hearts. This was on the 4th minute. So I think the real sort of key sort of part of this image is the amount of space that this lad has got. And I think this is one of Kobe Donovan's letdowns, was just the fact that he was backing off all the time. He didn't have one of his better games yesterday, and obviously the cauldron of Tynecastle probably didn't help. But I just kind of feel like, you and I clocked it watching the game, that he just kept backing off and really not showing the line. He was just sort of allowing players to cut inside him, and And that's, as a defender, a fullback, that's kind of 101 type stuff. Like, you've got it, like, if they beat you on the outside, so be it. But, you generally be able to deflect it out for a corner, but, you shouldn't really be getting beat on the inside. But we kind of saw that happen on a few occasions. I'm just going to have a quick look through the comments, Paul, if you want to sort of have a wee chat about this one early doors. This is the one that gets whipped across, and it's safe enough. It's comfortable enough that they won't really score, but it's just an early warning sign and a bit of a sign of Hearts' early aggression.
Well, yeah, like Kingsley, so I didn't look at he's got acres of space. I think that's Hatate actually that's closest, and he like, he's the closest man that could go, and he could let is it Cazaridis? He could let him go, and because he's not the immediate danger, right? That Kingsley crossing the ball is the immediate danger, but Hatate sort of gets caught in no man's land, decides to do nothing. Nobody comes out. Like, the gap's too big. Nobody's going to close that down anyway. But Hatate, instead, he's got the option to go to the ball, and he decides to back away from the ball and sort of run and keep an eye on that inside channel. And yeah, good delivery. Is this? I can't actually remember which. Is this not where the goal comes from? Is this not, it makes it across to the back post and then gets headed back and ultimately ends up as
it may very well be. I actually thought this was like their first chance of the game, but sorry.
I think this is the goal. I think he swings it from here to the back post.
Yeah.
So I talked about this, right? So if we're going to criticize, can we take it back one slide? So everybody will talk about Dane Murray smashing
slide.
Yeah. Okay. So everybody will just talk about Dane Murray smashing his own goal, and he's panicked, and he has, right? But this is the start of this goal. Look how much space there is. So he's got all the time in the world to pick out a cross. No pressure on the ball. We'll move to the next slide, which we could probably do with one in between. But the ball has already come. It's beaten every Celtic player, and Shankland heads it back into the danger area from behind Tierney. He's got a free header. There's actually two of them back there. Neither of them are tightly marked. So Shankland's got a free header. He heads it into the danger area. Braga's in the middle. This is as Casper saving it, but Braga's in the middle. He's got a free header. So you've got Dane Murray and Scales right there. They're both bigger and taller than Braga, and neither of them win the header. Neither of them are close enough to compete for it. And he flicks it, and it's a really good save by Kasper Schmeichel. I've seen some criticism to say, should he have got up a little bit quicker? In fact, you might have said something similar in the pub. I don't think so. Like, he ends up in the back of the net. He's tangled up, but he makes an absolutely cracking save, tips it onto the post.
I didn't say that, anyway. It must have been Dave.
Maybe it was one of the boys. Anyway, could we just go back one? Prior to that, he tips it onto the post. Who's the only man on the move? Lawrence Shankland, who's headed in the first place. Everyone else has caught ball watching. How many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If you include Tierney, I'm taking these two boys on the edge out. So seven defenders in the box, ball watching. Shankland runs. He reacts. He runs on. He sort of puts it into a dangerous area right in front of goal. And then, from there, Murray has an absolute catastrophe. He's just panicked and slashed it into the net. But there's a lot going on before it ever gets to that point, and there are multiple people in that slide that should take more responsibility, and it should never get to this point as far as I'm concerned. Once it does, he's just had a bit of a slap at it. Now, this happened against Aston Villa, and it also happened the other week when I can't remember that game, and he kind of cracked one against somebody and it went in the goal. So, you've got people going, he's just not composed enough, etc., etc. Let's talk about the fact that this is his 9th game in 4 years, over 2 years out injured. I'd be very surprised if any of those games have been back-to-back starts. So I've got a bit of sympathy for Dane Murray here. Massive game, loads of pressure. You'd love for him to just suck that up and be step up and really flourish. He hasn't, right? Like, he's the pressure's got to him, and he's on his wrong foot, and he's absolutely sclaffed at this and panicked. But then I think the whole thing then gets compounded. Like, he's had a bad start to the game, and that informs a lot of his decision making afterwards. He's a little bit naive. He's a little bit hesitant. He doesn't want to, the stuff he doesn't want to do in case he causes an even bigger mistake. And so it sort of compounds itself after that. This is going to sound daft because he's made 2 key errors, potentially 3, and we'll get to that in a bit. But actually, when the non-key defending stuff, which is obviously not as important, he's actually stepping out well. He was making forward passes. The only thing I would say about his time on the ball is he wanted too much time on it, and we talked about this as well in the pub. Too many of the whole back line wanted 2, 3, 4 touches every time they got the ball, slowed the game down, allowed Hearts to get set, put the squeeze on us, and we had a few hairy moments and try to get through. We just needed, when we moved the ball quickly and accurately forwards, which was hardly ever and not often enough, but the few times we did it, we carved them apart. We created 2 or 3 good chances. We scored from one. We should have scored from another. Luke McCowan had one flash past the post. Tati had another one flash past the post second half. And they were the 3 or 4 times that we actually linked the play, had players running off the ball, making quick one-touch passes. I just don't understand why we didn't play like that more throughout the game. When we did, we looked good. It was few and far between. But yeah, that goal was an absolute shambles, and we were fearing the worst at that point. But then we got fired up, and we got quickly back into the game. Fastest goal we scored all season. Prior to this, we'd only scored goals in the 26th minute. We hadn't scored any, and that was in both 2 cup games. We hadn't scored any first half goals in the league until this point.
12 minutes. Yeah.
12 minutes. Yeah.
So the thing about this goal was it was in its simplicity. It was really 3 or 4 passes, but just done in such a direct, pacey manner. So when you talk about switching the play and getting defenders on the back foot and making them shuffle across, this is like a textbook example of what coaches are talking about. This was done with pace. We got the overlap. We got the overload happening. It was a good pick out by Kieran Tierney. And it was an excellent finished goal from Cal McGregor, who, like I said, was trying to basically drag the whole team on his back. And it looks so simple, Paul. And it was like, how come we just can't do more of that? Like everything just clicked. And it's like someone with dementia and they have a moment of clarity and they're just like, they know where they are. And it's like, everything's just like, yeah, everything's fine. And then it just goes away again. That's what Celtic's like attacking at the moment. You just see these little flashes of, hey, that's like the Celtic that we all know and remember from last season, the season before, and even under Ange. But then it's like everyone just forgets. And then it just goes back to the turgid sideways passing, or in this game in particular, just losing the ball. I mean, the amount of turnovers early in this game and into the second half was quite shocking. But this was just a brilliant movement, and it was just so easy. And again, just someone where a little bit of awareness, just to have a little look up, and Cal McGregor's in the right position, and you even say that Hatati's there as well. So between the two of them, they're in the right position to receive the ball. And Cal McGregor rarely misses from that sort of that sort of situation. He really is one of the ones that you want the ball to fall to him, because he very rarely sloughs those chances. So 1 each, 4 minutes after they score, game on. You're really just hoping for a bit of a lift, Paul. But it just again, we probably at that point did probably kick it a gear, and you kind of felt like, all right, we're in this, we're back in the game. A little bit of pressure, a little bit end to end. Before we move into Niederen's chance near the end of the half, that was at 38 minutes. Is there anything you want to say about this goal before we move on?
Yeah,
it's probably our bright spot of the game, so we kind of probably want to talk about it.
Well, it absolutely is, and you're right. We shift the ball quickly and accurately, which is important. So this obviously takes it late in the play. It starts on the right wing. Nygren's got it on the right touchline near enough, and he plays a lovely little inside pass to McGregor. McGregor's on it at pace. He shifts it to Tinekti. Tinekti doesn't waste too much time. He just draws his man, waits for his runner, slips it into KT. KT makes a great run. And I'm screaming at Katie to put the laces through this and shoot for goal. But he's got way more presence of mind than I would have in the same position. And he just plays a cute little cutback. And McGregor's, he's never been still. He's picked up the pass from Negrin, he's moved it, and then he's on the run. And it's just a classy finish by McGregor. He's just nice and composed, slips it in. Keeper's got no chance, doesn't try and lash it, just passes it in at the back of the net. And you saw the reaction from, this is only 8 minutes after we've had a catastrophic start to the game. And in the preceding few minutes after the goal and before this, Hearts' goal before this, they threw the ball in the box a bit. They put some pressure on. They didn't really look like scoring again, but there was concerted pressure for 6 or 7 minutes at the start of the game. And this is where we start.
This was the one that Donovan nearly own goals at. So this was, again, like, this was probably their best chance in the first half, obviously, aside from the goal. And again, it was nearly us scoring for them.
Again, Donovan was terrified of the winger. And to be fair, I get it. He was extremely dangerous all day. And we were pulling our hair out going, he's got to squeeze him and show him the outside and show him the touchline. I think he was terrified that he probably could just nip round him and he would outpace him. But he's getting his angles consistently wrong, inviting him into the box. Once he's in the box, then you're in a world of trouble because you can't really touch him or you risk a penalty. And he's backed off at this point. He's swept the ball in. And Dane Murray actually does really well here. He's across behind Donovan and does a really good block, the type of block that Scales does quite regularly, and we give him a lot of praise for. But unfortunately for Dane Murray, it clatters off Donovan because he doesn't really know. He's just turned and not really looking where he's at. He's lost all his bearings. It hits him off the shin. And then at that point, it could end up anywhere. And thankfully for us, it ends up the other side of the post. And Shanklin can't quite get onto it at the other end and just gets a skiff of the studs and past it goes. But that's about, you're right. That's about as close as they got again in the first half at least. But what I liked after our goal was you saw McGregor totally pumped up after the goal. He was like fist pumping. He was geeing up his teammates. And then the second example of that was there was a bit of an altercation between him and Cammy Devlin. Devlin was a bit like, I think, was it McGregor that went into the tackle or somebody? No, Engels maybe went into the tackle. And Cammy Devlin made a meal of it. And it was a really good tackle, kind of between the legs. Cleanly took the ball, and there was a bit of momentum took him through, and the ref gave a cheap foul. And Devlin was sort of pining a bit, and McGregor was right in his face, which I love to see, because if there's one thing this current Celtic team is missing, it's a bit of nastiness. It's a bit of aggression, a bit of fight, a bit of willingness to get stuck in and do the dirty work. There's not enough of them that are willing to do it, and it's one of the reasons why we've been getting beaten. So it was good to see McGregor step up and sort of, lead from the front in that regard. He did fade as the game went on, but I thought he probably did have his best game of the season. Certainly first half, he was good. I think obviously on the balance of play, by the time we'll get to Negrin's chance in a minute, but the balance of play, I think I was pretty happy at halftime. I thought, we weren't perfect, but given where we were at with the team we were at, it was pretty patchwork. I thought we played enough good stuff in pockets, and we should have gone in at halftime 2-1 up.
I've only got this one image because the next one's just obviously the ball just flying past. But obviously the argument here is, should he hit it, just strike it first time? I think I think there's nothing wrong with. I think he did the right thing taking the touch and suckering the defender the wrong way. I just think he should have put his foot through it at that point and no tried to chip it. But I don't know. You're saying it's just poor execution. Is the right shot selection poor execution, or are you just saying he should?
No, I think he's got to put the laces through it. But I think if he tries to, he's stronger on his right anyway. So if he's trying to lash at this with his left, he's got the defender inside him and the keeper in the middle of the goal. I think there's more chance, in theory, there's more chance of missing that. Plus, it's your weaker side and you're leaning back. It's potentially going to go over the bar anyway. I think he shows really good composure to not do that and allow the ball to come through him and sort of take the touch and take the defender out of the game. After that, he's got the goal at his mercy. He has got to put his laces through that and rifle that into the roof of the net. And he tries to be a little bit cute or drill it low, and the keeper can't get to that either. Instead, he tries to take the fancy route and a little chip. Now, if it comes off, he looks like a legend, but it's the highest risk of the three options he's got available to him at that point. I just don't know why you would do it. And this is one of my concerns with Benjamin Nygren. Like, he's our top goal scorer, but that's sort of endemic of how bad we've been this season. He should have had 3 or 4 on Thursday night. In the end, the only header that he did score, and he missed 2 or 3 good chances with his head, it kind of just hit him. Like, it was easier to score than miss. He didn't really put any great power or direction in it. And the other ones which did need that, they were all over the place. So I don't know. Like, I understand confidence might not be super high, but you've got to take this chance. And this is one of the things, again, we talked about pre-match, was would we be able to take enough of our chances? Would we be clinical enough? We thought we would get chances. We might not get tons of them, but we would probably have to take the chances we got to get something from the game or even win the match. And we obviously had a little concern over a beer or two that we probably wouldn't be clinical enough. We would make chances and we would miss them. And that's what's happened here. And it's done for us, to be honest. Like, I honestly think if we go in 2-1 up at halftime, I don't think we lose. And I certainly don't think we lose as heavily and as meekly as we do in the end. This team is bereft of confidence, but a little bit of confidence can build you some momentum. We got 2-1 up on Thursday, and we did enough to get the job over the line when we were down to the bare bones. I think if we go 2-1 up here, get in, get G'd up by the manager, set out our stall, he's got options to come off the bench, and they have to push a little bit harder. I think you probably could potentially nick another one and make it really difficult for them. As it stands, we go in equal, and then they come flying out the traps, and we make a couple of shocking defensive decisions, and suddenly the game's away from us, and we were never coming back at that point.
Yes. Just one of those things where, like I said, we sort of lulled ourselves into a false sense of security that we're ready to put on a performance the second half. But unfortunately, that all changed fairly quickly. But before that, probably just a wee word from our Indian contingent. Just bear with me.
Oh my goodness, this is a great channel and totally free. I simply must subscribe right now.
Yes, please like and subscribe to the channel. It helps other like-minded Celts find us online. And again, thank you for joining us. I know we're on a slightly different time schedule as usual, but unfortunately WA, where we are in the world, does not have daylight savings. Cows don't know what time it is to be milked, apparently, so we don't get daylight savings. Paul, it all kind of unraveled on 52 minutes. Followed by another goal a minute later, but we'll get to that one. We'll do this one first. This is the shot that sunk our hearts and obviously raised theirs. But I think the sort of image from here you say is that the Celtic players everywhere and everyone's getting out the way. It's like they're playing dodgeball. You can dodge a ball, you can dodge a wrench. And it's basically, fall like dominoes to get out of the way of it. But again, pretty weak defending in the initial phase getting to this point. So again, our right side, it's weird because, obviously in years gone by, the criticism was Greg Taylor, our left back position, we get found out, exploited, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And this year it has been our right-hand side that has probably been our Achilles heel. And, all right, our first choice fullback's been injured, and you have to say that the 20 minutes that Alistair Johnson put in against Sturm Graz on Thursday night was just like a reminder of his quality and the fact that he was bombing up and down the line. He looked great, he put some really good challenges in. You're thinking, to get him back will be a real boost to the side. And then he re-injures his hamstring again. You can't sort of make it right. It's just like, it has all the hallmarks of making one of these horror seasons. And it's when things like that happen, you've got to say that is a potentially a pivotal moment. Yes, like as Roger says, it allows other players to have an opportunity. So obviously Colby Donovan, would appear to be getting the nod ahead of Anthony Ralston at the moment. But again, not great in the situation. Nygren probably not really giving him much assistance either, because he's played out of position in that sort of right winger when he's not really a right winger. So you kind of feel a little bit for Donovan there. But, a bit of the blame here, unfortunately, has to go to Dave Murray, because he is the one who gets his angles all wrong. He thinks the ball's going past the post when it actually just sails it in the inside of the post. And Schmeichel's remonstrating with him after the goal goes in, because he feels that he should get a block in. Arnie Engels dangling a leg there as well, not really making much of an effort. I don't know what he's expecting to happen from that sort of distance. He should be trying to close it down. But like you say, Paul, plenty of blame to go around. But this is a little bit of a sucker punch. And when Hearts were 2-1 up, you're thinking, gee, another mountain to climb. And then, obviously, what happens a minute later. But let's just quickly dissect this goal. This is the only image I've got as well, Paul. So feel free to.
Yeah. Dane Murray's getting the bulk of the grief for this. I'm not really having it, to be honest. He shuffles his leg slightly out of the way, and it goes through. But look at them. There's 5 of them in front of that player. It should never get to Dane Murray. Both Colby Donovan and Nygren should deal with this. Absolutely should deal with this. We start further back than that. There's no pressure, and this is one of the problems we had all day. And it's one of the problems we've had most of the season is our press is terrible this season. Like, it's one of the things that has been excellent. It was great under Ange. It was fine. It's been pretty good, very good under Rodgers for most of the previous couple of seasons. It's all over the place this year. I think part of the problem is you've Hatate and Nygren. Neither of them want to press at full pelt. Hatate will do it more so than Nygren, but I think having both of them on the pitch at the same time is a bit of a luxury. I think you can afford one. I'm not sure you can afford both. But Nygren's press is half-hearted, and it has been all season. When that's up in high positions in their back line, it's not great, but it's not as much of an issue. When it's on the edge of your 18-yard box, it's absolutely an issue, and that's what's happened here. He's got no urgency to get out to to Casaridis. Donovan's done what he's done all day. He's backed off, but he's a 19-year-old kid in his very first season of football. I've not got as much of an issue with, he's made mistakes. He's had a poor day at the office. The winger, to be fair to him, has absolutely terrorized him. But Nygren has got to be there. He's the closest midfielder, and he's not, like, in full pace. He's not even. He should be breaking his neck to get to that. You've got Engels, you've got McGregor in behind. They're not marking anyone. So and neither Hatate stood in the edge of the box. There's nothing for him to worry about either. So Murray's made a little shuffle. I think the other thing, and I touched on this earlier, is Murray by this point is terrified of his own shadow, right? So he's concerned if he shuffles a leg at this, does it flick in the net again? So that's his other concern, right? He's second guessing himself.
Already done one. Yeah,
he's done one. He's second guessing, and so he's like, well, he's almost like, well, I'm better off letting the keeper deal with it. Do you know what I mean? I think I'm not prepared to hang Dane Murray out to dry for this one. A kid who's barely played for us, and however, and I've seen a lot of people say he's 22. Yeah, he's 22, but he's played 9 games in 4 years. So he's basically 18, 19 because he's been out injured for 2 or 3 years in terms of his experience levels. Centre back pairings and back fours need time together to gel and mesh and all that other stuff. So it was a bad day for him to need to play from the start. And it was a bad day in hindsight to play 2 kids on the same side, especially with a Hearts side that was bang up for it and players in form. And Casaridis had a field day. capped off a great day with a great goal. But there's no way that shot should even be getting away, never mind getting to Dane Murray or Kasper Schmeichel.
Well, when one of our wingers cuts in, there's usually about 15 players blocking it. Like, I was saying, how can't we do the same thing? I mean, there's enough bodies there, but like, I always feel like whenever we try and get these shots away, it just is blocked because it's just a lot of congestion. But for the number of players in there, we just seem to be like, I wouldn't say useless, but like there's 3 guys there that, Dave Murray's obviously got a player either side of him, holding a defensive line, but midfielders there like offering not a lot, and it's frustrating, and you just takes the wind out yourselves, and you're thinking, oh, here we go, we have to do this again, and you just start scratching your head going, just make it so hard for ourselves. But good finish. Give the boys credit. It was a good cut inside, good finish, but still, like, again, we sort of, it's an easily preventable goal from our point of view.
Well, another frustration is here. He's cut in and he's arrowed one, and it's inside the post. We have 2 in later in the second half, in very similar regard, but cutting in on the same side of the pitch, but therefore the opposite side. If you're at the other end, McCowan, he's got just the wrong side of the post. Hatate flashes one past the post as well. Now,
I think Engels had one as well. He
did. Yeah, he did. So you got 2 or 3 chances, flash past the post. You just need one of them to be, they've had one shot from the edge of the box.
You got to hit the target. You got to hit the target.
You've got to, absolutely. And again, to the point we were touching on earlier, there's no confidence in this team that will score goals. And whilst the defence have had a bad day at the office, if we were taking our chances, we're probably not losing matches.
Alrighty. So we may as well just keep going. So this was a minute later, so we'll just reset. This was a long ball over the top, by the way. So this was a defender just basically humps the ball at the park. Shanklin gets the flick on, and then it falls to your man, their centre forward, who literally this was the only thing he did all game. I was very close to saying at halftime he's done nothing, but I kept that to myself, thinking famous last words.
Well, he did have he had the header that Kasper saved that led to the goal.
But
and he was involved. He was involved in some good link-up play. But to be fair, like, they've plucked him from absolute obscurity, and he's a top goal scorer in the league. So we can't be too critical. He'd be scoring a hatful at Celtic right now. I'll tell you that. I'd have him. Based on who we've got available to us at the minute, I'd have him in my team, I'll tell you.
Well, he went down like a sack of tatties here, and then I thought maybe he's playing for it, and then saw the first replay, and I went, oh no, Dave Murray's just flipped his heel, and
he was playing for it. He absolutely was playing for it. Like, that contact didn't put him down like that. He's made an absolute meal of it. But there's 100% contact. It's 100% a penalty. But Murray at this point is just like, his head scrambled by this point. This is just absolute naivety. He's running away from goal. There's zero threat. Just jockey him. Don't stick out a leg. Like, it's one of those, like, it's electric fence. It's like, oh, it's electric fence. Should I touch the electric fence? No, I shouldn't have touched the electric. Oh, I've touched the electric fence. Oops. I've tripped your man, and it's a penalty. But again, he's not the only culpable individual in this debacle. Like you mentioned, Shanklin's got a free header. Who's jumping with him? Scales is nowhere near him, right? Scales is his marker. What's Scales good at? Jumping up and heading the ball. That's his job. That's the best thing he's good at. He's not great at passing. We saw that again. But he can win headers, and he should be winning challenges in and around the box. He's nowhere near Lawrence Shanklin. He's got a free header. He flicks it in the channel, and after that, we're in real trouble. So we've once again not dealt with things properly, and then you leave a kid to make a daft error, and after that, it's game over. We're never coming back from 3-1.
I think one of my criticisms here for a couple of these goals is this one and the first goal is that there's plenty of players around him. It's not like
look at the second. Like, we counted 5 players between the shooter and the goal.
It's not like this lad's 1-on-1 and he's panicked because if he beats me, he's in on goal. He's started running away from the goal. So, I mean, that's a lack of match awareness on Dave Murray's part. But where's the players telling him, jockey, like, just like, you've got backup. Like there's fucking Celtic players everywhere. Like talk to
Well-
the kid. Like
Well, exactly. Who's the two?
This issue.
Who are the two closest to him? That's Kieran Tierney right behind him, and the skipper just behind him. They are the two leaders. They are the two leaders. You've got leaders, 4 leaders within 5 to 10 yards of him, and he's getting zero support. We're all over the shop.
And with the first goal as well. With that first goal there, he had time to take just take a touch and take it down and put his foot through it. He was under the impression he had to arsehole wind that away. And he was under no pressure whatsoever. There was no Hearts players within about at least 5 yards of him, 10 yards of him. So, I mean, again, a wee call of time. Like, I don't know, do they still say that on football parts? I mean, back in my day, like, it used to be the good time. Like, because, if you know you've got time, you'll take a touch. Whereas if man on, whatever, right, you play it first time, you take your chances. All right, if it doesn't, you make a mistake, you make a mistake. But yeah, I just kind of feel like he's telling me a little hung out to dry in that respect. I still, with that, the caveat to that is that this is still very poor defending, and yeah, I mean it's just capped off a really, really bad day at the office for him. And again, you're sort of then saying with hindsight, he should have played Austin Trusty if Austin Trusty's fit. Like you say, you're maybe saying there, Paul, maybe he's not 100%, but he's been sitting on the bench, so you like to think he has been fit. But he's opted for that left-right balance when, maybe experience should have trumped balance in this regard. And I suppose the real interesting thing is what does Brendan do with Dane Murray? Because we got a European game during the week.
No, we'll play Falkirk on Wednesday night.
Play Falkirk, right? So he's got a decision to make. Does he stick or twist? Like, does he show confidence to Dane Murray and say, "Look, I've had a mare, but let's regroup and send him out again and show faith," or do you say, you're partially culpable for 3 goals? I'll put Austin Trusty in, and acknowledge that I probably got that wrong. What way do you think he's going? Given the fact that, that's 2 league defeats, we really can't afford another slip up in the league. We can't, we obviously don't want to go out in the cup on the weekend to that Monkey Mob either. So, what does he do? What do you think? Where do you think he'll do?
There's an argument for both, right? So it's up. If Trusty isn't quite 100% and he's been holding off on him, then given how threadbare the squad is already, he's going to be panicking, right? Like, one of the things we've been saying, or I'd certainly been saying for the last few weeks, is the emergence of Colby Donovan. Now, he didn't have a good game yesterday, but he's had a good run of games, and we've all been quite pleased with his sort of arrival into the side. That meant we didn't have to rush AJ back. Well, then it looks like AJ did get rushed back, or if he didn't get rushed back, he was just super unlucky in his first game back to get the same injury. He'll be panicking a bit if that same thing happens to Austin Trusty, because then he really is down to the absolute bare bones. So the semi-final against Rangers has got to be informing his decision on Wednesday, because if he thinks he wants Dane Murray to continue for the longer haul, then he's kind of got to play him on Falkirk, against Falkirk, because he's got to get his confidence back up. And, Falkirk at home, all absolutely zero gimmies at the minute, the way we're playing, but, that would hopefully be an opportunity to do that. The danger is the Celtic support a lot of them have made their mind up on Dane Murray already, which unfortunately is what we do. We, big chunks of the fan base, not only do we not give...
Very judgy.
No, well, what I was going to say is not only do we not give new players much time to settle, we're even harsher on our kids, right? We, the fans consistently say we want to see players come through the academy. There's nothing better than young players coming into the first team and making a name for themselves.
Only if they're really good.
It's one of the reasons we love KT. We love Cal, James Forrest, a club legend. But James Forrest took a fair share of grief down the years as well. So we kind of can't have it both ways. If we want kids to come through, we've kind of got to have some patience with them, and that's one of the things as support we have always lacked patience as a fan base, certainly since the more recent successful years. And the atmosphere is getting toxic. Obviously, there's a bad atmosphere with how we feel about the board. That's then transitioning in terms of awful performances. I'm not saying the two are connected, but the awful performances aren't helping. So, I think I'd be keen to get Trusty in the team. I think if Trusty's in any way close to being fit or can be fit for Rangers, I'd be starting him against Falkirk with the view that he comes through that, play him for 45, 50, 60 minutes, get him off, then get Murray on, get him half an hour to try and build his confidence back up. Hopefully we're in a comfortable position by then. And then hopefully Austin Trusty comes through and then you play him against the Hot Crossers at Hampden. But you could toss a coin. Who knows what? Like, one of the things at the minute is, and I've got a lot of sympathy for the manager because he's been left hung out to dry in terms of the thinness of the squad. But I really don't understand a lot of his decision making at the moment. So he could do anything on Wednesday.
The other sort of culprit who we haven't really mentioned this all night tonight is Rio Vitati, because again, kind of missing in action for most of the game, and I think it's something that when he brought Balikwisha on for Tenecti, that for me was a downgrade. Tenecti was one of your main, the only real attacking thrust outlet, allowing us some width to actually try and expose Hearts. And when he came off, that just basically all dried up. I thought Shin Yamada was okay. Again, what are you expecting? I mean, he took one ball down with an absolute killer touch, and you thought, John Kenny's not doing that. Like,
he also linked the play every time he got it. He held, for a man of quite small stature, he held the ball up well, he held people off, and he linked the play. I thought he should more than 15-20 minutes than Kenny did in the last two matches. It's another baffler. Like, I thought he should a little bit of promise against Rangers at Ibrox. He showed a little bit of threat. He had one chance he nearly got on the end of, and you thought, well, give him some games and you'll see how this lad maybe does. And then Rodgers decided he was a mile off it. Yet he put his faith in Johnny Kenny. There's a few head scratchers, to be honest, like that. But yeah, I think you've got to get game time into. I think there's a lot of players you want to be getting 45 minutes, 60 minutes into on Wednesday night, so that you've potentially got options for Sunday. Because as bad as they have been, we're now in a terrible place as well. We're threadbare, our confidence is shot. So yeah, depends what happens in midweek really as to how both teams are feeling come that semi-final, because it could swing pretty heavily.
Yeah, look, it's just like I say. You could all make an argument that Nygren and Balikwisha are both more number 10s than actual wingers. Well, Nygren's obviously not a winger, but
we spoke about that the other night as well. Like, I agree with you. I think they're both more 10s than they are wingers or anything, or 8s or anything else.
We don't really play with a 10.
We don't play with a 10. So again, it shows not only is recruitment being terrible from a timing point of view and from an investment point of view, but then we've panicked and rushed in and buying players that potentially don't even fit the system. And as players sort of drop away through injury, you think, well, maybe you've got to find a system that suits what's left. And we haven't really done that either. So, I certainly don't want Rodgers out, because the alternative terrifies me with this board. But he has got to start finding some solutions with what he's got available to him, and he's got to start giving people that haven't been on the pitch much an opportunity to see if they can do any better. Because look, he had a poor game again yesterday, Engels, but he had a great night on Thursday. He was arguably man of the match on Thursday night, him and Liam Scales. So, expecting them to go back to the well when they've hardly played any football and produce 2 cracking performances within 3 days is maybe a bit much to ask, because they're not playing that amount of football that they're up to speed. And again, to your point earlier in the show, that's because he hasn't rotated the squad enough over the last period. And you're right, he's probably flogged players, and that's where injuries are coming from. So there's a danger if he doesn't start doing some more rotation, then he just compounds the issue and we get more key players with more injuries. And we've only got what's available till January. And then the worrying position is you don't trust this board to do anything right. Like, they wouldn't invest in the summer when we needed it, significantly needed it. We talked again, and other shows have mentioned this. We've lost about, I think it's 100 goal contributions from the squad with it and not being replaced. You can't expect to get the same performances and results if you pull that out of the side. It's just, I don't care what anyone says. Like, people saying, yeah, the players we've got should be good enough to beat Dundee or whoever. And I don't think we have got a team that's good enough to beat Hearts at the minute.
I quite like this comment from Strange Love Doctor. The board set the stage and Brendan writes the script. The actors are only as good as the story, and so far it's been a shit B movie. Yeah, I think that's fair. And then Maesh is giving us a little bit of glimmer of hope, saying that Hearts are outperforming their XG, where we are underperforming our XG. So who knows? Maybe they'll have an Aberdeen and have a wee implosion. At the moment, I can't see that happening. They look pretty solid, and I guess for them is that's the thing was that was the 5th time that Derek McKinnon's put that same team out for the last 5 games. So they've got consistency at the moment where we are solely lacking.
Well, they've got the benefit. They've got the benefit of only 1 game a week as well. So. Yeah. Our squad is threadbare to be playing big matches week, 2 big matches a week. So yeah, it's look, I don't think Hearts can continue at this level of performance for the whole season.
Oh, they'll have a blip.
They might, and if they do, fair play to them, they'll go and win the league. I think the Christmas New Year period will be tough. My biggest concern is I'm not convinced that we, however many points they drop, I think there's a danger that we'll drop points as well. So yeah, it's going to be challenging. There's still 3 games against them to play. Their cousins from across the motorway will no doubt get a gift here and there as well. So we'll see. But yeah, there's a lot to do and there's a long way to go.
Callum McGregor was my man of the match. I think he was your man of the match.
Yeah,
good performance.
Tried his best. In a Celtic shirt, they were. But yeah, that's how we tend to pick our best man of the match.
Tried his best, but like I said, he's only 1 man out of a team of 11. So yeah, but fair play. And I actually thought he had a good game against some Graz on Thursday night as well. So he actually backed it up with two good performances. So, and then yeah. So right. So I think that will cover everything that I want to say about that show or that match. Paul, I've got not a musical recommendation, but a bit of a musical travesty on the weekend. So Moonee Valley, it was the Cox Plate on the weekend, and Australia has a real bad record of musical acts at sporting events. So if you think back to like Meatloaf at the AFL Grand Final, and there's been some absolute disasters. In fairness, Snoop Dogg was actually really good this year. He put on a really good show. But Darryl Braithwaite sung Horses before the Cox Plate on the weekend, and it was terrible. Horses is his iconic song, and it's a great song, but unfortunately Darryl is a little bit past it, and yeah, I think he needs to be put out to pasture, as it were. So it was just a bit depressing. So not a musical recommendation, but just a musical observation. But yeah, it was a little bit depressing. What have you got for us, Paul, in the world of music this week?
Couple of recommendations. 1 music, 1 telly. So usually do an album of the week for anyone who's new. So my recommendation for album of the week is Matt Berninger's second album. So Matt Berninger is the lead singer of The National, if people are across that band, one of my favorite bands, and his second solo album, taking a little bit of a little bit of time out from the band. He's got a solo album came out earlier this year called Get Sunk. It is excellent. So if you're into the music of the National, then check out Matt Berenger's second album, Get Sunk, came out, and I think probably the end of May. So I think I talked about the lead single of it on one of last season's last shows, but the album wasn't quite out at that point. So yeah, check it out when you get a chance. TV wise, the third season of Trigger Point has just been dropped in Australia. I'm assuming it's pretty recent in the UK too. If you're in Australia, it's been shown on Stan, and it's the bomb disposal squad.
Vicky McClure, isn't it?
Vicky McClure, yeah. So third season of that. If you've watched the first couple of seasons, same idea. High stress and tension as we try and stop bombs going off across London. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Is the gist. We're 3 episodes into 6, so we're rattling through it, but we will probably finish that this week. And yeah, so that's my 2 recommendations of the week. One TV, one film.
One thing we've been watching on Apple TV is Knife Edge. So it's basically reality TV based around restaurants going after Michelin stars. So each episode's set in a different city. So there's been about 3 or 4 episodes dropped. So they've done like New York and Chicago. Really interesting because these people are just so passionate and so focused, and the attention to detail is just incredible. Like what they've got to go through, and for some of them it's like trying to get a star. For some of them it's trying to keep a star because you get reviewed every year, so you've got to maintain your standards and you've got to be able to deliver the same quality food every single time. So I think I'm surprised like the suicide rates and probably are quite high already, but like there's some of them you just sort of shaking your head going like, yeah, it's really quite full on, but it really can sort of change the business if they do sort of get that recognition. So that's quite an interesting sort of behind the scenes sort of look at what's involved with that. So that's good. And you and I, Paul, are off to Melbourne to see Oasis.
We are indeed.
We will give you Paul's seen them already, but for the rest of the plebs that live in Australia, they're doing Melbourne this weekend and Sydney the weekend after. So I dare say anyone in the Australian contingent of a Celtic World is probably involved with that one. So we'll be back next Monday. But yes, hopefully with a few stories to tell on that. Paul, great as always to catch up.
Yeah, you'll be back, I think, in Perth for the match for the semi-final, but I think I will be watching it in the Melbourne number 1 Celtic Supporters Club at 1 a.m. local time. So, and then on a flight back about 10 a.m. So that could be an interesting morning with some beers and not much sleep. So I might be somewhat worse for wear when we do this show later on that day. But hopefully there's a result to celebrate, in which case I'll get through it fine.
Well, see, I thought I was in Melbourne for the football team. My Achilles heel, I like to think I'm a reasonably intelligent person, but my Achilles heel is time zones and changes of clocks and whatnot. So that just catches me out all the time. So no, I'll actually be back in Perth, so I'll be watching it here. But yes, we'll be back next week. So that's 8 p.m. Western Standard Time. So what's that at Celtic Park time, Paul? Help me out.
That's midday. We've gone to 8 hours back to the UK, so it'll be midday back in Scotland.
So midday kickoff for us lads next Monday night, and we'll be looking at the League Cup semi-final. So that will be the game that we will be reviewing. So look forward to that. Hopefully we are into the final, but no guarantees. So we'll see how it goes. Paul, great to catch up again. It was good to see you last night, regardless of the results. And thank you, everyone, for getting involved in the comments section. It's all winding down, and we'll see you again next week. Hail, hail.
Hail, hail.
Instead of this settling for mediocre, imagine what we could be.